In this video, we're going to be looking at what is a tautology, a contradiction, and a contingency in discrete math. So let's start off with the idea of a tautology. So tautology is a logical formula that is always true. So let's look at an example here. So this is our example. So here we have written P or not P. Now this is always true, no matter what our P is. So let's set our P to something that is true. Okay, so if I have true or not true, which is false, this is congruent to saying that something is true. If I can have true or false, or I guess in this case it would be congruent to true. So that's the idea of a tautology. It's always going to be true. Now let's look at the idea of a contradiction. So a contradiction is a logical formula that is always false. So the opposite of a tautology. So it's always going to be false, right? Now, let's look at our example here. We have Q and not Q. Let's say Q in this case is false. And if Q is false, we're going to say Q or not Q, right? So again, Q in this case is false, right? It'll be false. And the opposite of false is true. Remember, we're taking the negation like before. So we get true. And this is congruent. If I have false and true, we will get false. Because that's how this logical connector works. That's how AND works, right? So that is an example of a contradiction. And finally, we have a contingency. A contingency is a logical formula that is either true or it is false. So let's look here. Let's say, in this case, P is true, and Q, in this case, is false. So if I have P is true and Q is false, if I have true and false, this would be congruent to false. So now let's look at another example. Let's say that instead of P being true and Q being false, let's have both of them equal to true, which is allowed since they're independent of each other in this case. So let's say P in this case is true and Q is also true as well. So it'd be true and true, which is congruent to true. That's what makes it a contingency. So it can either be true or it can be false. Depends on what your P or Q are. So that's it for this video. Hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching.